So welcome everybody. It's the 30th of August 2019. It's the Amavasya, the new moon, and we have with us on this Shakti dialogue Sujata Ameya, who is a highly trained, highly experienced psychotherapist, teacher, healer, speaker, trainer. She wears many hats, and I'm also to let her share a little bit about her work. I know she has worked in mental health with NIMHANS, which is India's best known mental health hospital. So Sujata is someone who has seen it all. I would think there are very few psychopathologies that she hasn't encountered in her, I don't know, 20, 30 years of work experience. She's also a coach, and she does the art and science of self-actualization. She does this whole work around the beloved as discovering the love within self as the highest self within and in all. There are so many sides to Sujata. She lives in Hyderabad, and she has two daughters, beautiful girls, one of whom I have met. She has her own amazing story to have got to where she has got to. The reason I've asked her to join us on a Shakti dialogue with women from the Shakti Fellowship as well as people from her own network is I've invited her to share with us her understanding of what happens as a therapeutic triggered process when we take on a leadership journey that is transformational in nature. Because I have felt and also shared that on any self-mastery path, two things have to be handled parallelly, and one does replace the other. One is to become a leader of oneself, and therefore through that of the life one leads and the people one works with and lives with. But equally on the side is the therapeutic process of the wounds that get surfaced as we undertake a transformational journey. And when the wounds get surfaced, how do you keep tending to them and attending to them and healing them in a way that does not enter into the leadership process and derail it? So these are two parallel journeys. They are separate journeys. They're also interlinked journeys. And Sujata is someone who has intimately seen both sides of these journeys as separate ones and intertwined ones. And since we run the Shakti Fellowship as a transformational leadership program, I wanted Sujata to also be available to share her experience when we have our doubts and questions. So this is for all of you to feel free to also ask her once she and I have a few opening remarks. So Sujata, over to you. Why don't you share a little bit about yourself in the context of the leadership?
Sure. Thank you, Nilima. I think you've said, you've given a pretty good summary of what I do. I would just like to add a couple of things to it. So it's interesting how you describe these two streams of self-leadership, leadership in your work, and also the wounding, the journey of how that needs to be addressed. So the two courses that I teach, one is called Art and Science of Self-Actualization, and the other one is called Art and Science of the Beloved. So as we speak, in the last several weeks, one of the strong impulses I've had is to see if these two can be one course. Because as you said, while they may be separate, they're very closely intertwined. By that, what I mean is the leadership journey either is triggered by, your own interest to discover your purpose, and then play it out in the world, or it can be triggered by an intimate relationship. Both are equally legitimate, equally powerful paths that take you back to your own inner self. And the path to that inner self, to that higher self, the highest potential in you, is paved with your wounds. There's no escaping that. There's no shortcut to that. There's no bypassing that. And as you keep taking step after step, a new layer of the same wounding keeps emerging. So many a times on this process, some of us may feel, oh my God, I thought I was done with that. Why is that happening again? So it's typically not just that happening again. There's a deeper, much more richer insight waiting to be unpacked as you encounter this time after time, time after time. So in a way, the healing journey is not really a linear journey, it's a spiral journey. So with each spiral, you're ascending higher and higher. Even in your own psycho-spiritual personality level, even if you do not bring in the spiritual component of ascension, this is something that each time you're a better and better version of yourself, while including, holding, and embracing the brokenness that's inevitable because of the childhood wounding. Yeah. So I hope this kind of sets the foundation for what all we want to discuss.
Thank you, Sujata. And actually, I just feel you've started so beautifully. Why don't you just keep going? Go one level deeper. Maybe a prompt. Maybe one of the ladies here would like to prompt you to go further. Is there anything that came up for the listeners on what Sujata shared on these parallel journeys, the leadership journey and the healing journey? Right?
Can you give an example of how those things might what might be a trigger? Examples of those kinds of things that one triggers the other?
One triggers the other. Okay. So I think, so tomorrow morning I have a seminar on the art and science of the beloved. And the core messaging in that entire 90-minute experiential process is this. When you are in an intimate relationship with a partner, with whoever it is, the discontent, the disappointment, sometimes the delights also, all of them mirror back to you something that's unfinished in you, something that's unrecognized in you, unexperienced in you, or unexpressed in you. So the psychological term for all these processes is unprocessed. So what remains unfinished and unprocessed will get triggered. Now, through that, one could, keep talking to the partner and telling them what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, and how they can change, and that'll only make it better for you. But it really doesn't work like that. When you tune in to what's coming up for you in that pain, in that disappointment, in that anguish, it very quickly takes you to the original wounding that would have happened in your upbringing, in your childhood, which, of course, at that age, at that level, with that level of cognitive underdevelopment, we would have either completely shoved under the carpet or maladapted to it. We would have adapted to it in a way that would have worked then, but it won't work now. Yeah. So let me give a very concrete example. Let's say a child who grows up in a family where there's just too much going on. Everyone's very busy, or if someone is ill, someone is not available. So there is one adult or two adults who are handling this whole thing all the time and very buzzed. If this child is very sensitive emotionally, most children are, but some children are extremely sensitive to these energetic messages in their environment. So this child will adapt, and I'm using the word maladapt, will adapt in a way it tells itself, I'm going to just, get myself out of the way, because these guys are doing something very important and they seem very tired, they seem very overwhelmed. So I'm going to just step out of the way. I'm going to make myself kind of invisible and just contribute to the system. The children have a very high sense of loyalty and being useful to wherever they're growing up. So this child will develop a persona where they will remain hidden or remain behind the curtains or somehow not allow themselves to be visible. And that works very well because then they don't disrupt the family drama that is going on. Drama meaning whatever is going on, the caretaking, the managing, the, whatever. Now, it works then because the child neither comes in the way for the adults, nor does it feel deprived because it's not asking. It's just sitting in the sidelines, right? Now, it takes a supremely present adult to recognize, to notice that this child is kind of withdrawn and needs to be brought back into the picture. For most families, it's actually easy. The child is then termed as the model child, the least troublesome child, the child who just is so sweet, who's actually so mature, and it just seems to work and all goes well until now this child, let's say this is a girl, she begins to date, maybe gets married, and then this habit of staying behind, not coming out, not expressing, not saying what she needs, not asking for what she wants, will also conveniently work for the marriage. The husband is also in this amazing space, in the space of, I have such an amazing partner. She doesn't demand, she doesn't ask anything. Now, this goes on for some time, but at some point, the sense of invisibility, the sense of deprivation comes just overtakes you. And then various things kick in. Either you feel loss of interest in doing things, loss of pleasure, feeling various degrees of depression. Sometimes it's just very subclinical. You may not actually land up at a psychiatrist, but just feel so undercharged and quarter battery kind of feeling, no motivation, no sense of meaning, no sense of purpose. So it just kind of goes on like that. So when you pause to ask yourself, okay, what's going on? Why am I feeling like this? Then it takes you back to this and brings you back to what could be the purpose of all this difficult childhood experiences. So as I said, these children tend to be extremely empathic. They can pick up things. They can understand what people are saying way before they're said, or they can read very deeply between the lines. Now, these are skills that you need in professions like teaching, nursing, coaching, counseling, therapy, right? These just develop as these very, what do you say, the side benefit of all the wounding that is going on. So most of these people tend to be in what we call helping professions. They actually get into these things and do amazingly well there while carrying a sense of hollowness and emptiness at a personal level. So this is a potent mix and a potent opportunity to actually look back and see, okay, I'm doing great, but I'm also, feeling empty. So how do I connect these two? So that's how these two journeys come together. Does that make sense?
It's very, this is Angelica. How are you?
Yes, Angelica.
Hi. It's very interesting. It's almost like as if you were describing me in my childhood growing up, what's happening today. And through the Shakti program, I was able to face some of those things, but I still struggle with that today. I mean, that, yes, I'm empathetic with everyone, and I understand when someone's going through something. I'm very capable of reading the room and knowing the source of what's happening. But when it gets back to me, it's almost like a puzzle, right? So I have had to go back to my childhood and see the times when I was invisible and when I was getting myself out of the way. It's almost like I shut myself down for myself.
Yes.
So I can understand the spiral that you're talking about.
Yes. Well, I'm glad that you recognize that. So would you like to share how you work with it when it shows up now? What do you?
The way I work with it, Well, first of all, I think I go back to breathing. I thought learning yoga and working with people, I thought I was very good at staying present, but I think I just go back to my breath and I see the patterns that I follow. So when I'm becoming anxious or when I'm feeling blocked by something, I start using my breath to get back into presence. And then I ask myself questions. I ask, is this attitude, is this situation happening to teach me something? What is my reaction to it? What's going through my head at this moment? And I try to note my habits around it. I try to note what is the source really, and what's my behavior around it, and what leads me to feeling depleted. So I think that's my work right now, just being conscious about my actions, my thoughts, and where it leads to, and how I can change it.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. You brought in a very important component of this whole process. You used the word depletion. So I think depletion is a direct result of inattention, right? So when we are not present, and when we fail to pay attention to our inner space, we actually very quickly reach the state of depletion. And it is in that state that we are most vulnerable and most available to the reactivation of the wounding. So the staying invisible is the persona pattern. It is so habituated, so practiced, so strong, because it's been on all the time. It's the default mode. We just take that role on. And the more we do that, the less we are present to ourselves, the less visible we are to ourselves. And then depletion is just around the corner after that. And then it really hits very hard. So I think the points you shared about being present to your breath, asking yourself questions, being open to what new learning is available in this thing, in that experience, I think those are very valuable immediate tools that you have handy to do that. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah.
Sujata, could you talk a little bit more about some, I would say a lot of the women in the Shakti fellowship, and including myself, are empaths, are empathic. And empaths going through a transformational journey seem to be in a state of heaviness right now. There's a lot of incoming, a lot of things that need to be processed just in the world, separate and apart from our families of origin, our families of choice, friends, etc. Are you seeing that? And what else do you think? What are other mechanisms to start to filter, deal, so that you don't get to that empty place? You can start to address those things as they're happening, and not go into the dark place.
All right, this is interesting. So, so I have a very different take on this, Rebecca. I believe that the fear or the resistance to the dark place itself is a defense we need to work through and tear through. It's a veil that we need to enter. Yeah. So there are two parts to this. One is, and I always joke about this, we had those 10 commandments. There's 11th one operative in the world at this moment. Thou shalt always be happy. It is like impossibility. Because I think everyone just has gotten this idea that, if I do A to Z regularly and surely, I will always be happy, and thou must be happy. Thou shalt be happy at all times. I think if we can place that basket off of our head and on the ground, half our problems will be solved. Seriously, I really mean this. Because I think it's not just an impossible ideal, it's a foolish ideal. Because I don't think we were born to just be happy. While happiness can be a good starting place for things, it's never a constant state. It's never a permanent state. So we were born to adventure. We were born to discover. We were born to create. We were born to contribute. So, meanwhile, happiness can be a side benefit, which is great. And many a times, while we are on that path of discovery, recovery, contribution, adventure, happiness comes and goes, comes and goes, comes and goes. So, I think making that a goal is a risky thing already. The second component, which is this other side of the same coin, which is the resistance to the unhappiness, or what we sometimes call the dark spaces. That also ensures that you actually remain where you are, because it is through the dark alleys that you emerge onto the light on the other side. So while it's important to have practices like what Angelica described, and all of us know, whether it is breathing, mindfulness, yoga, journaling, artwork, all those daily discipline practices that we do, while those are very important to just retain balance of the mind so that we're not swayed by our emotions, I don't necessarily feel those are to be done in order to avoid or prevent a dark place, because it is through the dark place that we are going to enter the light, right? So sometimes I've also realized this working with myself and with clients. Extended dark phases are the most powerful transformatory possibility. So let's say something is prodding you, poking you, and you're down for a few minutes or a few hours. That's one thing. But let's say something is like really traveling around in your inner space for weeks, for months. That means there's something tremendous waiting just underneath it. And we need to make that journey, painful as it might be, and sometimes more than painful, scary as hell. It's very scary also. But if we can embrace these two guys, pain and fear, we usually emerge on the other side. And that's where people like me are supposed to help. And I'm saying supposed to help because sometimes people like me also collude in saying, oh, no, hush, hush, it's okay, it's all right, this is all good. Here, do this practice, you'll feel better. So I'm not necessarily a therapist that's committed to making people feel better. I'm committed to making people become better versions of themselves. So that can be quite a destructive process many times, many times. So I don't know if that, really answers what you were asking, like, how to handle the dark sides. I think there is a way to handle them, and that is to meet them, to meet the dark times, to meet the dark spaces.
Suja, it's Michelle here. I was coaching a client recently and triggered, obviously, a question that I asked triggered. It was a male, a really painful reaction from him. So the defenses went up, and I backed off. I could see that he was triggered, and he had a story that that he was going to avoid this, and that I wasn't understanding, and so I sat with it. But I'm wondering what I could have said to him when that happened, because the reaction was so obviously, hostile, and of course it wasn't to do with me, and he shut down. The hostility appeared, and then really the session. Luckily, it was near the end of the session. And I thought, what words do you say when somebody does that, and without losing them?
Right. So I gather you are also a counselor or a therapist.
Yeah, I do coaching. I do quite a few things, but one thing I do is coaching, and this was to do with money. And so this is about money behavior and archetypes.
Okay, got it.
This person had spent 10 years. He was actually quite very successful in one area of his business, and then he published a book, and spent 10 years writing this book. And he had one critical review a lot of very successful reviews, but I was asking him about that review.
Got it.
And he so that was the problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So here's what's coming up to me as I'm holding this question. So one of the challenges and the beautiful opportunities of doing this helping work, whether it is therapy or coaching, is to find balance these two things: empathic understanding and confrontative challenging. Yeah. So what you described, I've learned that normally happens when what we have offered is just a little ahead of their readiness to really look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then I do two things. One is I honor what has actually happened right there in the moment. So with a statement like, it sounds like this is not resonating with you at all. So let's leave it be for now, and let's go back to whatever you were saying. So that kind of detours the conversation to whatever they still want to talk.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it's a message to me to check in with myself whether I am in a greater hurry to take them to a better place than they are. Am I overriding their pace? Because healing work has to be at all times determined by the pace of the client, not the pace of the therapist or the coach. Yeah. The third thing here could be insufficient empathy. By that, what I mean is that there are times when you get what people are saying, but there's this one piece which hasn't been expressed by you. They've not heard it in your words. They've not heard it from you, and they're still clinging to that.
Mm.
So for example, you can say something like, I really hear you, and I can only understand all the kind of anguish you've gone through. And that is true at a very general level. But a deeper empathic statement like, oh, when that happened, that must have left you completely naked or completely helpless or something. An experiential empathy, which zeroes in on the precise nature of the inner experience of that person. Then they're willing to let that go, let the story go, and then they're willing to listen to what you have to say. So perhaps it was a slightly premature offering of a challenging perspective.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think the empathy I gave wasn't deep enough because the reaction was so extreme. I knew that something underneath that was
still
so extreme.
Yeah.
So I sat with it and said, I'm sorry, that happened, but I didn't go deeper. I think that would have really helped. No, thank you.
You're most welcome. And I want to add one more point to that. There are times when, due to your own inner work, or because you've just worked with so many people and you've seen so many patterns, you may actually be right in knowing and seeing and predicting what's going to happen or what they really need to do. They really need to do that. You can see that. Also because you're outside the problem. You're not inside their head. Yeah. But then I've also learned that you can only humbly offer that to them. And they may first knock it down, then turn hostile and vanish and do all kinds of things and show up sometimes 10 years later. 10 years later and say, you remember we met in that clinic and you had said this, I get it now and I'm ready to work. I'm like, yep, let's do it now. So I think it is really about allowing everyone's space to be what they want it to be. And
I have heard that he has made some progress with that.
There you go.
Yeah. But no, that's very helpful.
Thank you. Thank you.
You can only do like your best, and then the person, the client can choose what they need to do. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's leave and move on.
Yeah. I've also learned one more thing. This is in that way similar to parenting. So you plant whatever your little pearls of wisdom we may think we have,
Mm-hmm.
and you surrender, you let it go. It'll sprout when their soil is ready,
Mm-hmm.
not right away, not when you want to do it. So yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Rebecca, I think in the previous part when we were speaking, there was something else I think you were going to say. You were reaching out, and I think Michelle came in. Was there something else you wanted to ask?
Yeah, it was sort of this piece about being an empath. As I believe that certainly Angelica and I are. I'm not going to speak for everybody else, but we've had that conversation. Angelica and I have had that conversation before, and several other of the Shakti sisters. And I would imagine more people are empathic now in these times. And so my other part, the other part of my earlier question was really about, and I'm grateful for your darkness, that part of the, the conversation. And then to sort of talk about the earlier part is that there's so much incoming happening on right now to be alive on the planet today. There's so much coming in.
Yes.
And Angelica's idea of breathing and being present and all of these pieces are one extraordinary way of coping. How does one do this in a day-to-day methodology?
Got it.
And so I was saying, my reference to the darkness, and I'm in love with your answer because getting when one is in the darkness, I need that information. But trying to just manage the incoming, I guess, is is where I'm curious.
Yes, I understand. I think your question, and you're right, probably it applies to all of us who are to various degrees empathic. Yeah. It's about how do I retain my sanity and my boundary in the midst of the chaos that is every day and that's just getting worse and worse. Yeah?
Exactly.
That's what your question is.
Yeah, exactly.
So
and thank you for this saying that better than I did.
All right. So I don't know if you've had a chance to listen to Anulo's video that Nilima posted yesterday. She said it would be good if we all watched it ahead of time. That's okay. So let me quickly summarize that for you in like 2 or 3 lines. Okay. So I was just so I think this is the beauty and this is the power of connecting and having circles like this, right? It just takes you back to your knowing and it takes you back to your belonging, which is just so. Thank you, Nilima, for posting that. That's just such a beautiful video. Although, as I said, I only watched about 35 minutes of it. So, Rebecca, what she says in that is when you look at the process of the caterpillar turning into a butterfly, at the stage of the cocoon, it is in complete and utter destruction. It's like death and decay and complete chaos. And apparently, and this piece of information just got me all excited. I didn't know about this. Apparently, the DNA of the cocoon, the caterpillar, and the DNA of the butterfly are different. That was like so mind-boggling for me. It's like, what? So it's like almost 2 different species, right? And I can relate to that. It's like how you've been several years ago to now. Literally, I think it's like you went through a DNA transplant. Some of us can relate to that metaphor, right? So
yeah, they're imaginal cells. So they're actually imaginal cells.
Yes, exactly. So the key takeaway from that for me was, and I think it might help you with this question that you asked. So these imaginal cells emerge 1, 2, 3 here, there at a time. and the immune system of the caterpillar actually fires them down, doesn't let them come up. So many of them initially die, but the design is such that they keep emerging, they keep coming up. And slowly, as they network with each other, as they get together, as they start forming coalesced bodies together, is when the immune system can no longer beat them down, and then they then build the butterfly. Yeah. So I got this insight listening to that all of us, empaths, leaders, coaches, healers, teachers, therapists, whoever we are in our own lives, are like these imaginal cells right now in this utter and complete chaos. I mean, think about it. We are having this call peacefully in the middle of two massive meltdowns that are happening: the Amazon fires and the Iceland, the glaciers melting. It's like, what can be more catastrophic? So we are there, we are right in the middle of it. And I think at individual level, on a daily basis, each of us gets fired down just by the flood of negativity that that we encounter. So it's like the imaginal cell being fired out, fired down by the immune system within the caterpillar. And every news item, every Facebook post, every TV news, no matter where you look, there's just so much darkness, so much pain, so much negativity. But then, if you remember your role as the one who will build the new, the butterfly, the something beautiful out of this, and then you remember to connect with yourself and connect with other people, other imaginal selves. Could be sisters, could be brothers, could be everybody. And just hold tight, breathe, inhale, exhale, do what you need to do. Although it feels like, what's the point? Some days it just feels like, what's the point? I think eventually the critical mass of the imaginary cells will ensure that a really beautiful butterfly will emerge. So that holding the thought that I'm here for a purpose and it's not easy and I'm not going to give up. I think that alone on a daily basis, like have this written down on a little slip of paper and stick it on your mirror and stick it on your wall and stick it in your wardrobe, stick it everywhere, that I may feel insignificant, but I'm contributing something significant just by refusing to die, just by refusing to be there. Die, I don't mean like really dying, just by giving up on myself.
So the darkness might equate to the earlier place of, like as the imaginal cells are getting killed off.
Yes. Also, our atmosphere right now, our whole world, our environment is like the dying, decaying cocoon. We are inside a cocoon right now. But we are the ones that can show the way out. We are the ones who can get together and help all of us get out there. And it's going to be not just a new, nice change. It's a complete transformation right down to the DNA. Not only does the butterfly look very different from the cocoon, it's just made of a different stuff. So I think we are in that process. So some days it can just feel like, I can't take this anymore. But that's okay. We get another day, we get another opportunity, we get another chance, and we go on, and it's worth it. It's worth it.
I think the blessing too is the sisterhood that Nilima's created.
Oh.
So there's a wonderful support system with these women.
Yes.
That are so empathic, but so welcoming.
Yes.
That is the gift.
Yes, that's true.
I want to just a few bits that are coming from our 9-month journey. The famous quote that a day came when the risk of remaining tight in a bud was greater than the risk of blossoming.
Yes.
Right? So the question is, do we have a choice to remain tight in the bud and play in our own way? Did we really have a choice? Or is there something in us that actually brought us to an experience like the Shakti journey? So because, the will of God will not take you where the grace of Goddess will not keep you. So not journeying is not an option. much as we may have, wondered, was it worth it? Why did I take this on? Right? Oh my God, am I having a nervous breakdown instead of a spiritual breakthrough? Right? But this thing of, did we have a choice? And when we are in this incredible meltdown where the caterpillar is disappearing, it can really feel like this was a huge mistake. But that's why we have to trust that all the wisdom, the teachings, the practices that have been provided right through are the grace that's going to also see us through. So, I mean, I would also like you to talk a little bit, Sujata, about how do we do more self-care? How do we just, take, it's easy to not be able to hold all the chaos and the confusion, and then to start, throwing it out there. How do we learn to be compassionate with ourselves and others while this is happening? What's the self-care? How do we become more responsible for that inner child that is lost at this time? Anything you can add would be very helpful.
So I think the very, very fundamental prerequisite to even begin self-care is already inbuilt in your fellowship, presence. Yeah. Without that, pretty much nothing is possible. By presence, to add to whatever you have shared in your program, it is the choice to be here now in this moment with my five senses, with as much objectivity as I can bring to the moment as is possible. Yeah? No judgment, no assumptions, no preference. Right? So presence itself predisposes you to self-care because you see what's going on. You don't miss it. So once you see it, you have to respond to it. There is no choice there, right? So at a very, very basic banal level, let's say you were rushing through someplace and you have a scratch on your skin, on your forearm, thanks to some little thorn from a bush that was leaning over your walkway. If you're present, how can you not put a band-aid on it? You will. You will. But if you're not present, you're not even registering it, where is the question of self-care? Yeah? So presence is the quintessential thing that we need to do. Now there, I think each personality has a different way of developing it. So some of us can work with visualization, some of us can work with breath, some can work with yoga, which includes breath and visualization. Some of us can come to that through journaling, through coloring, sketching, drawing, nature walks, pottery, gardening, making tea, chopping vegetables. Anything can bring you to that state of just quietude so that you agree to be present to your own life, first of all. That's important. And then self-care, I think I'm probably not the best person to talk about it because I think I've not really been up to the mark on it, but I do have some ideas. I think the connecting back to what would light you up as a child is a good way to look at what you can do today to bring back that joy, to reconnect with the spaciousness, to reconnect with the just the causeless joy. I have this phrase called causeless joy. It's just like that. Kids giggle and squirm for no reason. It's just there, right? So we all have that somewhere. I think it's hidden, it's shoved away in this whole buzz of growing up and becoming an adult and taking responsibility. So if we can reconnect with what that is, and that may not remain the same that was in childhood, like skipping ropes may have given you that then. Today, maybe something else will. But will you make time to explore what that is, find out, and then do it? I think that's important. And also, this changes within a year, it can change to so many different avenues, or within, over several months, over several years, it can change. So, for example, uh, um, let's say several years ago, just, you know, trying to create modules which are experientially capable of creating an insight for the participant, for the client, or for the workshop group used to give me this unbelievable high. And then that changed recently to these writing these poems, because I was on this journey of finding the beloved. Yeah. So every time I would touch that space, this whole poetry would come out and I would write, and that just would give me such a sense of overflowing fullness that in that space, somehow the darkness also finds a space, because we know we are working to change it. So we won't fight it, we make a place for it. I don't know if that makes
Sujata,
sense.
what was popping up for me was, we went 9-month journey on the Shakti Fellowship, and we effectively birthed ourselves anew. And therefore, not only are we a new baby, we're also a new mother.
Yes.
To ourselves.
Yes.
So can you speak about self-parenting as a nuanced version of self-care?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So if you don't mind, I understand the part about, that's beautiful actually. You're a new person, so you're a new baby and a new mother all at once. Yeah. So I have a slightly different take on it for a reason. The reason being this: most of us who are empaths also haven't had the best examples of parenting. So for us, the word parent is imbued with, if not negativity, ambiguity, a lot of ambivalence, yes, no, love, hate, that kind of thing. So I feel a word like a friend or a beloved will work just as well. Yeah. So self-parenting, or it is more about befriending yourself. So for example, when I'm feeling something and I'm not able to identify it, I'm not able to name it, I'm not able to recognize, I'm first of all getting very upset that I'm upset. When I'm in that state, if I go and talk to a friend, how does she respond to me? How does he respond to me? Can I give myself that response? Is the way forward as we nurse this new baby and also support this new mother, the new mother that we all have become to ourselves. So it helps to have besties. I'm sure we all have those. So just a quick imagination of, if I said this to her, if I spoke about this to her, what would she say? And that immediately does two things. One is, it gives you a distance, it gives you objectivity, it gives you a sense of um, uh, some amount of impersonalness to the whole experience of being so worked up and upset in the middle of a stew. So you're able to see what's happening, you retain your awareness also. And second, through this friend, through this bestie, you also bring in very naturally understanding, listening, patience, and compassion. And most of the time, it passes. It doesn't, nothing needs to be done about it. It passes. It passes. However, something very important happens. The currency of healing is attention. No matter what level of the problem, attention alone will heal it. So the attention can come in different forms. It can be a surgery, it can be a medicine, it can be a potion, it can be a hug, it can be therapy, it can be inner work, whatever it is. The modality may be different. But ultimately what we are doing to reach wholeness is to supply it infinite amounts of attention. So the fact that you've paid attention to this, using your friend as an imaginary mirror or an imaginary counsel or a friend or a beloved at that time, just the paying attention to that experience transmutes it and takes away the painful or the edgy aspects of it. And you learn something and move on from there. So it stops being a repetitive experience. It stops being something like, oh my God, I'm feeling the same way again. It doesn't keep coming back. unless of course it's a old massive wound and pieces of it are still happening. That's a different matter. But the method of working with it remains the same. Can you be your own deep friend, your own counselor, your own beloved, your own your own really loved person who can look at you with that kind of those kinds of eyes, that it's okay. It's okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Sujata. We have a few other women on the call. If they would also like to ask, we are at the end of our time, but we start about 7-8 minutes late. Mm-hmm. So if everyone wants to stay on, we can go for another 7, 8, 10 minutes. If anyone else wishes to ask questions, go ahead and do so now.
I have a question. Okay. So my question is, when you see the potential for growth in someone, or you're working together with someone, and you're getting something from each other, you're in the process of healing together. How do you know when your input, the input meaning your patience, understanding, trying to be present for yourself, might become detrimental to your own frequency? So you see someone who you're working with someone is going somewhere, is helping you, but what you put in actually drones you out.
Yeah. Got that. Amazing question. I'm so glad you asked that. Yeah. So in other words, you're asking about the fine distinction between support and collusion.
Yes.
Yeah. So when is a friendly response support, and if the friendly response is to yourself, when is that understanding or patience with oneself, and when is it tipping over into just being that way, being stuck, not being ready to move on. Yeah. So a very quick way of making that distinction is, if this thing is repeating again and again, and you feel relieved when you receive the support, but you've really not moved forward in that aspect, you've not gained any learning, you've not received any message, you've not unpacked the gift, then it means there's a collusion going on. So this can happen between actually two friends too. You are in some pain, you go pick up the phone, call this person, and they are empathetic and sympathetic to you, and that becomes a pattern. It's almost like the problem needs to remain alive for this friendship to continue. That's collusion. Yeah. So some of the ways you can actually sense this is, soon after that conversation, while there may be one level of relief, there's another level of burden and heaviness. There's a feeling of stuckness. There's a feeling of confusion, lack of clarity, fogginess, irritability. All these fine signs they accompany this kind of a collusive conversation. And also, it'll help if you kind of keep a timeline-based journal. So every 100 days, or like roughly every 3 months, is a good time to revisit what you began and where you are today. Yeah, so about 4 reviews a year is a good idea. So if this thing is trailing you for more than 9 to 12 months, something going on, something's not okay. Someone's not really propelling you forward. They're holding you in their own vibration. And you are also colluding with them because it's comforting. You're not stepping out of the comfort zone.
We have a drama triangle for codependence,
yes.
Which is what you're describing, right?
Yes, Kaufman's model, yes.
Yeah. So that someone's in a victim place and we want to rescue, and there's a very good feeling between rescuer and victim, because something out there is the bad guy, persecutor. But then this depletes both, and then the only way is to flip it and become the dharma triangle, which is, become the creator, the coach, or the challenger.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes. And let me add one more thing to this, Angelica. So many a times, I don't even know how to really explain this. Many times it's almost like you need to go through that collusion to develop sufficient energy to expel out of that orbit. It's like the phrase escape velocity in physics. The space shuttles, they need a certain amount of escape velocity to get out of the Earth's stratosphere. Otherwise, they fall back to the Earth. So there's a certain amount of volume and momentum and speed that has to be developed before you can exit. So sometimes these collusive relationships actually create that. So they are also part of our healing. It's okay. Yeah. But sometimes, even after you recognize it, you don't take action. Then the whole cycle of beating yourself up and feeling bad and feeling like you're delaying your progress, all those things also come up. But so I think these collusions also have value. They show you very clearly what's the problem and what's the kind of breakaway energy you need to get away from those.
I love that. I love that, Sujata. It's also reminding me of, one body of work that's just worked so well for me in my relationships. It's transactional analysis by Dr. Eric Berne. He describes the games we play, and these are rackets and so on, right? Like sometimes we're invested in keeping our collusion going because there is a payoff, right? This is how we self-deception, we deceive ourselves. We want to be in that martyr role, or we want to be in the victim role because there is some payoff, right? And so it becomes a racket. And so what I love about Games People Play, the book, is that we are so, you think we're so unique, but we are so typical that one can actually map all these typical transactions and games people play for strokes, right? The stroke economy, to feel okay, for the ego to feel okay, right? And then, of course, finally, the way he gets out is to say, I'm okay, you're okay. But it's always a good revisit to look at the games he's identified as typical ways to get strokes from each other. And if you can't get a positive stroke, you'd rather get a negative stroke than be ignored.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, yeah. So I think this is in another way saying the same thing. The collusion serves a purpose as long as the strokes are coming in and that is your need, until you're ready to let go of the need for those strokes and you're ready for some better strokes. Because life is full of the need for strokes that we can't escape.
The stroke economy.
Yeah, the stroke economy is what psychology works on. So I think
there is one game called Kick Me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. God. The masochistic part of our existence. Yeah. So I hope that answers it for you, Angelica.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay. Rebecca, are all your questions addressed?
Oh, I think we could do this for a day.
Yeah.
But this is extraordinary. Thank you.
You're welcome. And if there's something more that emerges for you after this call, I'd be happy to have a conversation with you separately on a WhatsApp or a call. We can set up that works mutually, and we can address this.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
So, on that note, we've come on the hour since we started. So thank you so much, Sujata.
Thank you.
It's a delight.
Thank you.
I know who you are and the work you have done and how genuine and healing and transformational and lasting it is. I know you have worked with cases that haven't been able to be healed for like years and years and years, and then a few sessions with you and you've done magic. So, I can really just bow to you as this incredible, incredible psychotherapist. And so thank you for who you are and what you do. And thank you for making yourself available to the Shakti Fellowship. I hope you'll join us one day and also become a Shakti Fellow. That day, I hope, comes soon. And I just invite everyone to feel free to reach out to you if they may, Sujata.
Absolutely. That's what I was just saying. I'd be happy, more than happy, to continue this dialogue in any way anyone wants. We can always set up a time, and we can do that. I'll be happy to do that. Yes.
And Nilima, you'll give us a way to reach her?
Beg your pardon? Yes.
I'll share the email ID with you.
Yes, you can do that, Nilima.
Or you can call it out right now, Sujata.
It's it's ameyasujata@gmail.com. So you switch my names, AMEYASUJATA, yeah, @gmail.com. Yes. On the 64 Yogini, since I'm a member also, if you click on my profile, all my contact details are there. So that's
great.
You can also do that. Yeah. All right. Lovely.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful new moon.
Yes,
and just stay deep and wide and open for all that needs to move through, for it to move through, all that needs to come in, for it to come in. May it be a safe and smooth transition to the extent possible. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, Nilima, have you got time to stay on for a minute?
Sure, others can log out.
Okay, thanks.